and you were at the 49ers pressers today, and I went ahead and watched them. The first one that caught my eye was, of course, Brock Purdy. Hearing from him, talked about his bye week, some of the things that he went through mentally and physically, or didn't go through physically, I should say, during the bye week. What were some of the takeaways you had today from Brock Purdy's presser?
Well, I thought it was interesting listening to him kind of, I mean, I'd gotten word from some of the people around the team that, he was really hard on himself after that Bengals loss, that
Yeah.
that he wore it kind of hard and that he went in the room and kind of said, guys, I effed up here. And today was a lot about, asking some dudes about that, I asked Forrester about it. I asked, Dre Greenlaw about it.
Forster was saying after the Bengal game that Purdy kind of talked and said, kind of took ownership for some of his mistakes. He's your locker mate. You talk to him probably a lot. Do guys need to do that? I mean, do you need to hear guys say, "Hey, man, it's on me," or is that him, a young player, Dre, kind of establishing himself as a leader in the room?
I think anytime you don't feel like you play your best game, you feel like you let the team down. And he didn't do that by any means. He didn't let the team down at all. But just the leader that he is and the way that he's growing, I think that he felt like that he needed to do that. I mean, and just by the way the game had went. So, I mean, it was good, honestly, just seeing him do that. Not that he needed to, but the fact that he's so bought in and that he do care for the team. You don't hear him say much. So when he said that, it was kind of like, it wouldn't seem like, it's your fault or anything like that. But it was kind of like, okay, he's kind of forming him to a leader to where, he knows that he has to play just like any of us do. So it's kind of cool to see that from a young guy, be able to step up and say that, hey, I'm going to be better. And that's what we need from every young guy on the team. But, I mean, just him being in the position he's in and the leader that he is, it's good to see it.
I talked to Tabor Pepper about it, and I just thought it was kind of interesting. And then Brock himself kind of addressed it, and he just said that he wanted to, let the team know that, it's on him, that, he's got to be better and that he wants to be accountable. And then, Forster's like, hey, man, the guy's a great guy. He's a great leader. He said he didn't have to do that, but it was cool that he is invested and accountable. And then when I asked Greenlaw about it, they're locker mates right there in the corner of the locker room. And he just said, he's like, it was great to see him do that. He's like, he didn't let the team down at all. The guy played his butt off, but you know what? It was good to see him do that because he is a young guy who's trying to ascend to kind of a leadership position in the room, right? He's the quarterback. And so I think more than anything, guys, you don't have to, you can't be fake. Like, and if you're going to stand up and go, hey guys, it's on me, you better be convincing. That's the one thing about an NFL locker room, Jesse. I mean, not that I'm telling you anything you don't know, but these guys know it's not about what you say. It's about who you are. And it's about, are you genuine or are you a fraud? Are you a fake personality that's mugs for the cameras, or are you a real dude that is, tough and smart and dedicated? And if you're not the real deal, these guys will read you and kick you out of the room somehow, some way. And so you got to be totally genuine. You don't have to be perfect. You don't got to say all the right things, but you got to be genuine and real. Otherwise, you lose the room. And I think that it's pretty clear that at least after that Bengal game that Brock kind of took, was in the middle of the locker room and just said, hey, guys, look, I'm one of the reasons that we lost today. My turnovers here in the fourth quarter cost us this game. And whether it's actually cost him the game or potentially or might have cost him the game, it's really good to hear a guy that's trying to be your leader stand up and instead of saying, hey, man, it's on you and him, instead you go, hey, it's on me. It's on me. And I think he won over a lot of people. So it was interesting to hear him talk about it today.
Frank Tom Ocean says, is Vish reloading? You mean deloading. Yes, he's currently deloading this week. He'll be back hopefully next week. But I agree with you. That was absolutely the story of the press conference. It very refreshing to hear how he went about that whole situation. where he went to the locker room, took full accountability. Because I remember the old quarterback not doing that, or at least not in front of everybody when he got up on the podium. It was always we. No matter what, you would look at it. Titans game, for example, in 2021, it was clear that Jimmy Garoppolo was the reason that they lost that game. But as soon as he got to the podium, he turned French and went we, and we just want to hear you say me. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
nice. I love hearing that from Brock Purdy. I love that he understands it, that he gets it, that he knows exactly what needs to be said and when it needs to be said. And it is genuine. It's absolutely genuine. And one of the things that you talk about a lot with Brock Purdy, and I acknowledge as well, he is an ultimate competitor. And I think ultimate competitors, sometimes it can be tough to just lay it all out and say, it was my fault. So I'm sure that wasn't necessarily easy for him to do, but I also think that it's one of those things that has to be done just for him to kind of get over it going into the bye week, feel better about it, and move on. And I absolutely love that. I think it was great that he went out in front of the team the way he did, took ownership, whether it was his fault or not fully. He took ownership, acted as if it was. And those are the moments right there, Larry, that earn the C on that jersey, which he's got this year. So you love to see it.
Right. And you're going to be asking guys to run through walls for each other all year. So you got to you got to protect your quarterback, and you got to be passionate about it. And you're only going to protect him really if you're somehow invested. To me, the other great line that he had, Jesse, was, one of the questions was, do the interceptions make you hesitant? And to me, this was his best answer because, it's like, we've talked about it. Brock's been kind of locked in, and not all quarterbacks get in and out of rhythm. So Derek Carr sometimes can't figure out when to, how many risks to take, and then how to be aggressive. So what happens to Derek Carr? Sometimes he throws ridiculous interceptions backed up in his own territory because he's not factoring in the risk reward factor, and he's taking chances backed up on his goal line. And you're like, why the hell did he do that? Then there's other plays that I've seen him throw the ball into the turf on fourth down in the fourth quarter of their last possession. It's like, dude, why? What are you throwing that one into the turf for? You throw it into the turf, it's an incompletion. If you throw it downfield and it gets picked, but take a chance. It's the final play of the game. So his whole dials are screwed up. He's so mentally screwed up that he doesn't know when to take risks. But Purdy was asked, do the interceptions make you hesitant? And he had the perfect answer. He said, there's a fine line between being aggressive and then at the same time being aggressive with the ball and taking shots down the field and throwing the 50-50 ball, as opposed to taking care of the ball and maybe taking the check down and maybe being patient. And I think that he was asked about, is there a particular play that you're thinking of? And he brought up the Minnesota game, and he just, that's really, I think, all I would say to him. Either if I was sitting around critiquing his play, I would just say, on a couple of these plays, you're trying to make a play. And I love that aggressiveness that you have and the ability, the confidence that you have to, put it in the hands of your receivers and try to make those 50-50 ball throws. But be smart. You're holding the team's fortunes in your hand. Protect the football first and foremost, and be a little bit more conservative. Don't just take every shot, and be a little bit more patient. Like the Viking throw at the end of the game that sealed the game. He had a running lane open. There was 30 seconds left. He didn't have to. It wasn't the last play of the game. He didn't have to make that throw. He's trying to make a play, and he kind of forced it. And he should have probably ran and then tried to take the timeout or whatever, spike it real quick. They had plenty of time. So that's really the constant battle for all quarterbacks. It's like, don't sit here and do captain check down and just, it's Kirk Cousins or Alex Smith, or it's 3rd and 8 and I throw a 2-yard pass and, we didn't get the first down, trot off the field. Take chances, throw it beyond the sticks, go for it. But there's also a time to be careful with the football, take care of the ball, be patient. I think as time goes on, maybe some of the games start to, there's a lot of games, there's a lot of plays. He was running for his life against Cincinnati. I think he kind of lost his patience in the second half of that game.
Yeah, it's interesting hearing you talk about that, or hearing him talk about it today, and then you bring it up, because I remember that was a topic of conversation. We might have had it during the offseason, but where Shanahan has this ability, or perceived ability, to kind of hold his quarterbacks back at some points, not necessarily let them play free. At least that's the feeling that you get. And Brock Purdy talked about it this offseason. Hey, I need to play more within Shanahan's system, and I need to be better at this. And, you're thinking to yourself, okay, that's good. You don't necessarily need to bail out of the back of the pocket every third play. But at the same time, that creativity that you have, that ability to improvise, that's what made you good. So what is that fine line? And I got to be honest, I think that there were times, even though they were doing great this year and he was playing great, there was like 3 weeks in a row where he didn't really run at all. He just stayed in the pocket. And so you started to think, where is that improvisation? Is it going to come back? Is this how he is now? And then you started to see it again last game, where he started to get loose more than he had ever in the run game, using his legs to get first downs. And you're like, okay, this is great. But then by that same token, that same sword, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. That same aggression, that same thing that made him great in that game, also took away in that game. And so it's all about finding that fine line. And when you're a young quarterback, you have time to find whatever that fine line is. Unfortunately, the 49ers are in this win now mode. And so he's got to be able to figure out what works and what doesn't, while also winning games. And that isn't an easy thing to do for any young quarterback, I don't believe.
And he's now up against his, most fierce challenge, because his team desperately needs a win. They're on the road. He's turned it over, and he's going up against one of the top takeaway teams in the game right now. Jacksonville's taking the ball away, and so it's going to be a huge challenge, right? Just to possess the ball and not turn it over against them. They're taking it away. They got good players on all three levels of their defense. They're 13-4 in the last 17 games in the regular season. So I saw them against Houston 6 weeks ago lose a terrible game. But they haven't lost since. They didn't lose at all in the month of October. Not only that, the same way that the Niners, who led, I don't think they didn't trail ever in the first 5 games. I don't think the Niners, for the most part, have really led for hardly any period of time in the last 3 games. Well, Jacksonville rolls in. They're 5-0 in their last 5 games. They're the hottest team in football. They haven't trailed in any of those games. So this is going to be a massive challenge for the 49ers